Hey guys, where am I going to sit here? Here? Is it here? Hey guys, I'm Mike, or Michael. I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at the side of the camera. Hey guys, I'm Mike, or Michael Stewart Robb, back from a little break. We had a holiday here in 2020 and we were able to travel, at least here in Europe. That's a possibility. The family was up at my wife's in-laws. No. I guess my in-laws, my wife's parents' house, and then down in Italy, trying to keep the kids interested in history and culture.
Here, Daddy.
But in the end, it was the pool, which won everybody over. Well, not everybody. Welcome back to my talking head, or what's better known as Pensies, where we talk about books and everyday spirituality. The last few were on technology and digital communication within the context of our spiritual life. I hope that those were helpful, and if you haven't seen them, go on and check them out. They're all orange, at least at the moment. I'd like to do one more, but it's a little bit of a tricky subject. I want to talk about the importance of being together in the same room with people, which in 2020 is quite a bit of a challenge. But what I've also been doing in 2020 is reading some European authors, especially with respect to the spiritual life. The one today that I've got in mind is a man named Johannes Hartl, which you will have figured out from the title of the video. If you don't know who he is, I actually didn't know who he was for a very long time. You can maybe tell that I'm not in the Johannes Hartl circle. I don't know him. I've never met him. Hi, Johannes. In case you're actually watching this, be great to meet sometime. What's interesting is he actually doesn't live that far away from me. I'm here in Munich and he's about 30 minutes away on the train in Augsburg. He started a house of prayer, 24/7 prayer, called the Gebet Augsburg, and is put his heart and soul into that, and really into living with God here and then for the rest of his existence, which is going to be a very, very long time. So I've never been to the Gebet house in Augsburg. I want to go, but I've seen pictures, I've videos probably as well. It's just hard to justify getting on a train and going over there to do something that I can do here in Munich immediately. I think I know Johannes understands that, but the way that I have gotten excited about Johannes Hartl is not only does he pray in this room 24/7 with a bunch of other people. I guess he's not in the room all the time. He's a writer, and he is a quite good writer. And I'm a writer. I spend probably more of my time writing than I do anything else. I'm much better at writing than I am at doing this sort of thing. And that's part of the motivation of wanting to read more European writers in the area of spiritual life, because I wanted to find more kindred spirits. And a friend of mine who knows Johannes, at least the Gebet house, sort of recommended one book that I try at the beginning, and that is Johannes's book, meinem, Herzen Feuer. And I bought it, sat on my shelf for a little while, and then at the beginning of this year I decided to read it a little bit every morning, and wow, Just an excellent, excellent book. It is an autobiographical book. Not a typical autobiographical book because it's not written chronologically. So you get little snippets of his life, but you don't get them in a timely order. You get them in a sort of topical order, and he's got, I don't know, I can't count the chapters here, a lot of chapters, lots of topics, and then snippets out of his life or just really beautiful descriptions or teaching's the wrong word. You'll find some of his teaching, his theology, his way of capturing the world in this book, but it's really stories which move it forward. And in a sense, out of those stories, his reflections come, mainly about prayer, but then as in the way that prayer connects to all other aspects of life. And the things that I like about this book, I like that it's local. I know that that's not always possible to find a good writer who's actually writing about the place where you live. For me, here in Bavaria, I like that Johannes is about my age, and so he's in my generation. He's sort of experienced things, or history, I should say, as I've experienced. I know that's not always possible to find an author who's just right in your age, but what I like the best about this book is that it tells the story of a person who God got a hold of while they were quite young, and who walked with him throughout their teenage young life and then their young adult life and into their 30s, and Johannes has now entered his 4th decade. Is that right? Maybe it's the 5th. I think it's the 5th decade. It talks about how God has shaped him into the man that he has become and is still becoming, and it talks about how he discovered his unique place in life, which he'll talk about the house of prayer, the Gebet house in here, and how that took shape. But I think a lot of the autobiographical stuff that we get deals in the Christian world, deals with people who have had some sort of big conversion out of a different way of life, and those are important, and that is the story of a lot of people that they too moved from a very different life into a way of life of following Jesus. But we have also, and we don't tell these stories very often, people who met Jesus very, very young through their family, through the churches that their families brought them to, or other people. And then Jesus got a hold of them, they got a hold of Jesus, and then they just walked with him through their whole life. And a lot can happen through that. That is really the ideal way to go through life, if that's how things turn out for you. And then to sort of see how God can take a person like that and lay on them a fairly large or a bigger burden, let's say, or a task in the world. And it is important there, and Johannes knows this, not to take ourselves too seriously. There's this story of a fly riding on the back of a truck and riding over dirt roads, and there's this huge cloud of dirt that's being kicked up, and the fly says to himself, "My, what a great plume of dust I am creating." And that happens sometimes, that God gets a hold of somebody and really works through them. And I know that that's happened with Johannes in many ways, and thankful for God for that sort of thing. But if you get down into just the deeper parts of his life, and I think that's what's wonderful about this book, is that it does really show you Johannes's heart and mind, and that's what's so valuable about these kinds of books, these autobiographical books, and ones written by poets. And I think that's something that you can say about Johannes and about this book, is that it's very poetic in its presentation. I read the book in German. I should probably say that there exists an English version called Fire in My Heart. I haven't read it. I can't say anything about the translation. It's probably fine. And you will still get that sort of those stylistic, poetic, beautiful descriptions of life and of life with God. One of the things that I have discovered about Johannes Hartl is that he has a real affinity to the pietists. The pietists are known for their interest in getting the wonderful truths, metaphysics, philosophy, theology of the Christian world beyond their mind, and really getting it into their feelings and affections, what they would call their heart. And I mean, that's what we've got here in the title here, heart. That was their word for it. The idea is that it's just not enough to just think about God or think about all the things that God has done. If it gets into our feelings and our affections, then it has a better chance of actually changing our way of life, because our feelings and affections are much closer to what we're going to do day to day. Another thing about the book is that it's really based in stories, and some of his stories are quite adventurous. Some are quite astounding. Some of the things are quite ordinary, and that's good too. I'm sometimes worried about stories. I guess, no, I'd put it this way. I'm worried about certain types of stories because I know that they make for really good reading. And some of the stories in here are what I want to read about. I mean, you wouldn't want a story about me walking to the store and buying my groceries for the week, because there's not much to that. But something that's adventurous, something that has twists, something that has miracles in it, makes for a good story. But it can also, and maybe if I'm moving into something more of a criticism, or at least a question, I wonder if dramatic stories can be difficult for other people to know what to do with, other than to sort of sit back in awe of, because it may be that God has not called us to a very grand, miraculous, adventurous life, and a lot of our life may be lived in very ordinary, walk to the grocery store and buy groceries for the week sort of time, and that's a very important place for spirituality, life with God, prayer, worship, etc. So I think this is an excellent book. It's a genre that I would like to see a lot more of. Some of my favorite books come out of this genre. One by Eugene Peterson called The Pastor. Unfortunately, doesn't yet have a German translation that I know of. And Thomas Merton's, now I guess you could say classic, The Seven-Story Mountain, about his process of moving from a kind of unchristian soup to joining a Trappist or Cistercian monastery in Kentucky, that around the time of the World War II. Eugene Peterson, the pastor, is also his story of becoming a pastor. And I'd like to see a lot more of these types of things, both for religious vocations like Johannes Hartl, or maybe somebody like me, or Eugene Peterson, or Thomas Merton has, but also how this takes place in regular, ordinary, pilots or clerks at a store, or mothers, fathers, how people enter into these vocations. So thank you, Johannes, for this wonderful book. I encourage people to read it in German or English. Write a comment about what you liked about the book down below if you've read it, or perhaps that you're intending to read it, wanting to read it. Thanks too for getting to the end of this. If you like this kind of thing, if you like this video specifically, actually like it. Check out the other things that we have on the channel and consider subscribing. Mixture of German and English here, which alienates one half of my crowd. Probably not. I mean, Germans should be able to understand my English. There's a Patreon site. You'll find that. That's a great way to support us. We can very soon accept charitable donations in Germany through the Sanctus Institute. We are an eingetragener Verein. So if that's a way that you want to support, you don't have to support us. That's maybe more just the way that for some people, and other people I just want to bless with these videos, bless with good books, bless with counsel, advice, wisdom on everyday spirituality. So thanks for watching, and keep reading. We'll see you next time. You can see I've got a light here. What do you think of my light? Try to change things up. These are so hard.
We're alive for another chance to find a heartbeat and keep on dancing. And finally I'm seeing that today is my happiest day.